Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching the 𝐀𝐦𝐚 Talk Show, and I'm your host, 𝐀𝐦𝐚. Today I have an incredible guest, Jason Goldberg. Hello, Jason.
Hi.
Jason, please tell us more about yourself.
Yeah, so first of all, thanks for having me. I'm so happy you're at the event, and I'm so happy whatever I did made you want to bring me onto the show. So
amazing
thank you
energy.
for that. I like to say that I'm a joy activator. I just want to activate joy in people.
Wow.
My entire life plan is to leave everybody I meet with at least 5% more joy than when I found them. And so I could be a Starbucks barista and do that. I could work at a grocery store and do that. I could do what I do now, which is coaching and speaking and writing books and all this stuff. Whatever it is, as long as I have the chance to leave people with more joy and less suffering, that's all I really care about. So my background came from technology. I was in IT consulting for about 15 years.
Wow.
And then I had a couple of other startups. I had a transportation startup, and then I had another startup in partnership with NASA in the space shuttle program.
What?
And then I got into coaching and speaking about 10 years ago. So I've kind of been all over the place in my journey.
Wow, from NASA to self-development.
I mean, isn't that how it always goes? Doesn't everybody go to NASA first and then self-development? Or you go into the stars and then you want to go through the universe. You know, it makes sense that way.
Crazy. We have never had someone from NASA in our studio.
Amazing.
Wow.
This is fantastic. I'm so happy to be the first. Maybe I won't be the last. Maybe you'll have a bunch of astronauts come in now.
Great. But you know, NASA work and what you do now is about universe. Amazing, abundant universe that we're going to speak about today. So tell us more about your coaching job, what you do right now.
Yeah, so I primarily work with people in entertainment, so celebrities, actors, directors, writers, some people in fashion, some people in politics, and also people who are leaders in small companies, small to medium-sized companies. But the main kind of core thing that I try to work on with everybody is I truly believe that if you want to level up, you have to lighten up. You have to not take life so seriously. It doesn't mean you're flippant and you're running around and you have no goals and you're aimless. It just means we don't put so much significance on everything. We don't take everything so seriously. Because if we can take a step back and still be sincere, I want to be devoted to the work I'm doing. I want to pour my love and my creativity into the work I'm doing. But if I take it too seriously, it works against me. So the work I do with people is really the work that I've had to do on myself. I was raised by a single mother. It was only just the two of us. My father left before as soon as she got pregnant, he just ran away. I always say he's a professional magician. He just disappeared one day. And so it was always the two of us. And so from a very young age, I had to kind of help manage my mom's emotions. She's a single mother, trying her best, hustling, trying to make sure that she can put food on the table and take care of me. But she also dealt with a lot of depression and anxiety. And so as a little boy, I would see that and I would be there for her. But I also kind of feel like I developed that in a sense. And so I struggled so much with depression and anxiety and suicidal thoughts into my late 20s. And my weight skyrocketed. I got up to 330 pounds by the time I was in my late 20s. And all of this stuff happened because I was taking life too seriously. And when you took life too seriously, you have to have some kind of mechanism to cope with life when life feels too hard. And for me, it was food. And so I would eat when I was happy, I would eat when I was sad, I would eat when I was stressed, I would eat when I was anxious. And so I got to 330 pounds. And so I had to lose the physical weight, but even more than that, I had to lose the emotional weight, the mental weight, all these other forms of weight that I was carrying around with me.
How did you cope with that? How you lost, losing the weight, because the weight is also about emotions.
100%.
Because every time, that's the source of joy that we're getting. We have that correlation. Our neuron connections work like very easy, very simple. They see the source of joy, and every time when you feel down, you go to that source of joy. So my question is how you coped with that, how you got to the point where you understood, okay, I'm going to lose my physical weight, and then I'm going to lose my emotional weight, my blocks, my work with my shadow, because that's a shadow work.
That's exactly right, yeah. And it's not easy work for anybody. Like, just the people who decide that they want to get into personal growth, they're already amazing. Because it takes a lot of courage just to say something needs to change. That's huge, right? So for me, I wrote about this in the first chapter of my book, Prison Break, there's a chapter, the first chapter is called The Day the Universe Cut Me Off. And so it tells the story of when I was in my corporate job. This was 2009. I was 332 pounds. I was making great money as the director of engineering for this IT consulting firm, had the house, had the car, had all the things. And yet I was always feeling this depression, this anxiousness, this like the feeling that something's missing. And everybody I meet has this feeling, right? Like at some point in their life, like something's missing. So on this particular day, I was sitting in my office. I went to go make a purchase on Amazon with my credit card. It was like a $50, $60 purchase, not like some huge purchase. And my card got declined. And I didn't know, I was curious why, because like I knew I had money in the account, it was my bank card, and so I type in the card again and it gets declined again.
Wow.
So I had so much anger in my life also back then that I got super angry. What the heck is going on? Why isn't my card working? So I storm out of my office and I go into the building, the lobby of the building where I was working at the time, and I get my phone and I call the bank and I'm smashing the 0 button to get a live person because I'm so angry that my card's not working. And finally this guy answers from support, a really sweet guy named Steven, and he says, you know, thank you for calling, how can I help you? And I said, what the heck's going on? My card's not working, and all this, I'm yelling at this guy, this poor innocent guy, because I'm so angry. And he says, well, let me check and see what happened. So he punches away at the keyboard, and he comes back and he says, well, Mr. Goldberg, it looks like there was some potentially fraudulent activity on your card, and so we deactivated the card to protect your money, right? To which most people would say, thank you, thanks for looking out for me, right?
That's an amazing system in US, by the way.
Yeah, isn't it nice? They catch that stuff, right?
I love it.
But I still was angry. I got even more angry, right? Now I doubled down on my anger. What do you mean? Did they steal my card? Did they hack my account, my identity? What's going on? I said, what are these charges that were fraudulent? He gets back to the keyboard, he comes back and he says, well, Mr. Goldberg, it looks like there were 4 fast food transactions in one day. And we assumed somebody had stolen your card and they were testing it by making small purchases to see if it was still active before making a big purchase. And that was the day where I said, oh, no, those aren't fraudulent charges, that was me. I had eaten at 4 fast food restaurants in one day because that's how I had to cope. So that was the moment where it wasn't the wake-up call. People said, oh, was that the wake-up call? No, I've had all kinds of wake-up calls. My health was terrible for years. I knew I wasn't in good shape. I knew that I was unhealthy. This was the first wake-up call where I couldn't blame somebody else. I had to really look inward and say, what is my role in creating this situation? And that is what led me to start diving into personal growth. I knew there was people out there that I had met that had been through way worse stuff than I had, and they didn't seem to have the depression and the stress and the anxiety I had. So what do they know that I don't know? So I started reverse engineering, diving into personal growth, and that was how the journey started.
Wow. That's a powerful story. It's powerful because you just shared with something that each of us went through. And I think when people will watch this interview, they will start remembering their breaking point. You know, the point where all signs, they were so obvious. So how did you start? What did you start with?
So first I just went and asked people, like, what's a good personal growth book to read? I don't know, I don't even know where to start. There's so many options. And people told me, oh, you need to read Think and Grow Rich. That's the first book you should read. I said, fine. So I get the book and I'm reading the book. I hated the book. So let me tell you why I hated the book, though. This is nothing against Napoleon Hill, In Your Grave. Everything's fine. I love you. But I'm reading the book and he's saying throughout the book, by now you're probably seeing the secret that I've been pointing to this whole time. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Just tell me the secret. Why are you saying there's a secret, but you won't tell me the secret? The secret was that your thoughts obviously play a role in creating your reality. But that was so foreign to me that I'm reading it, and that doesn't even equate anything to me. So that was the first time where it started being introduced to me. But what had to happen for me, and I think this is what has to happen with everybody, you have to find a messenger and a message that really speaks to you. Right? So 12 people could say the exact same thing. But there's one person, because of their energy or because of their story you relate to or whatever it is, they really hit home for you. And for me, I found my mentor, a guy called Steve Chandler, and he changed everything for me. He really opened me up to the possibilities of what I could create in my life. Wow.
And now you have your own systems. So tell us, please, more about self-leading, self-leadership.
Yeah, so the book, so Prison Break, it's all about this distinction of that at any given time you can be a prisoner of circumstance, which means my happiness is dictated by the weather or the money in my bank account or who's in the White House or whatever. Like everything is dictated by outside circumstances. The self-leader, on the other hand, takes an ownership role. They say, I'm not going to be a victim of circumstance. I have the power to create, and my creativity is going to be greater than any circumstance I could face. So it's a much more empowered way to live, but it's also more truthful. It's actually a lie when we live as a prisoner because we're not actually at the whim of all these things going on. So for example, if you get cut off in traffic and you get really upset, which I used to get so mad, I would like yell and scream at people. I would chase people in traffic when I was younger, and I'm such a wimp. If I caught them, I wouldn't do anything, but I couldn't control my anger, right? So most people would say, oh no, getting cut off in traffic, that's bad. You get mad about that. Okay, maybe. What if you had just come from a studio and you signed a $10 million deal for a reality show where every time you get cut off in traffic, you get an additional $100,000 in your bank account?
Such a cool point.
then all day you
Love
drive
it.
around hoping somebody would cut you off, right? So
Yeah.
it's all about the perspective that we bring to the container.
Definitely. So we faced all that events, for example, traffic events, when we're not in a mood. That's why we react the way we react.
Right.
So how can we always be in a mood where we can take that events another way, but without $100 or $100,000 coming to our account every time?
I'm still waiting for somebody to make that show so I can sign up. I'm going to keep saying this until somebody makes the show and then brings me on. So a lot of times people read the book or I do a keynote speech and I come off stage and they come and talk to me and they say, I get it, this makes sense, I love it, I can see how it would be helpful for me. How do I do it 100% of the time?
Yeah.
How do I make sure I do this always? And my answer to them is always the same. When you figure it out, let me know. Because it's not about that. If we try to be in this place 100% of the time, not saying it's a bad thing if you can, but if you try to be in that place 100% of the time, we're negating the human experience, right? I don't want to disregard emotions like sadness or anxiety or stress.
Yeah.
I want to treat them like the little flashing light on the dashboard of the car when you're low on gas, right? It flashes to let you know, hey, just so you know, something's off in the system. I've never once had a moment where my car said you need gas and I go, what a stupid car. I can't believe this car needs gas. I gave it gas last week. Why does it need gas again? I go, oh, great, it needs gas. And the great thing about that too is that when that light goes on, it doesn't go on when you're out of gas. It goes on when you have about 30, 40 miles left in the tank. So you have plenty of time to slow down and say, okay, sometime soon I should probably attend to this thing going on. So if I can start using the stress and the anxiety and the sadness as a trigger point to say, oh, what's off for me right now? What am I being called to step into? What is it that I need that I can source for myself right now to help soothe and regulate my nervous system? If I can use it as just a pointer for that instead of it being some diagnosis of who I am, it's much easier to move through that.
So it's all about reactions.
Yeah.
The way you react. I don't believe in self-control. I believe more in self-management. So how do you manage those reactions?
Yeah, it's a great question. So for me, have you ever seen the movie Deadpool?
Yes.
Okay, the Marvel character, yeah.
Love it.
So yeah, Deadpool's amazing. He's my favorite for a lot of reasons. So the interesting thing about Deadpool is that I say that Deadpool is the most spiritually evolved of all the Marvel characters, and here's why. He's the only one who knows that he's in a comic book.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Right? All the rest of them, they think everything's real. But he's doing his stuff, and then he turns to us, and he talks to us at home.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, you see what's happening here? Because he knows it's not real. So he knows it's not real, he knows he's in a movie, but he doesn't use that as an excuse to sit on his couch and do nothing. He says, okay, well, I'm in the illusion, I may as well play the game and have some fun. So the more I can recognize that I'm living in this kind of illusion, and that anything that's coming at me, it's only real if I make it real, right?
Yeah.
That's the key, is like to remember at all times that you're just playing a role, you're just playing a character. This is not who you are. Because if you look at this, and I have this bracelet as a reminder, I'll tell you what it says here in a minute. If you were the director of the movie Batman, right? I know I'm doing a lot with characters today, but if you were the director...
That's a great example.
It works, right? So imagine you're the director of Batman, and let's say Michael Keaton, who was the original Batman, he's your star, and you're filming a scene, and you're doing all the things, he's doing all this Batman stuff, and you yell cut, and it's the end of the scene, and you're talking to the crew, and you're getting ready for the next scene, and you look over, and Batman's pacing back and forth on the set. He looks really stressed out. And he's your star. You want to make sure he's okay. So you walk up to him and you go, hey, what's going on, man? You look stressed. He looks at you and he goes, I don't know, just what if I'm not powerful enough to beat the Joker? What if my technology's not strong enough? What if the people of Gotham City die and it's all my fault? How can I live with that? And you're looking at him thinking, what's wrong with this guy? It's a movie. Like, I don't understand. So you have two choices. Number one, you can say, okay, Batman, let's make your technology stronger so you can beat the Joker and save the people of Gotham.
Yeah.
Or you can remind him that he's Michael Keaton, playing the role of Batman. And when he really realizes that, when you ask him, okay, cool, well, what were you doing before you came to set? And he goes, oh, I was in hair and makeup. Okay, well, what would you do before hair and makeup? Oh, I was driving to the set. What were you doing before that? Oh, I was home with my wife and my kids. Oh, wait a second, I'm not Batman, I'm Michael Keaton. And now all of a sudden, it doesn't mean that Batman's problems don't still exist, but now I get to bring an energy to it that's co-creation, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't think I'm at risk. The role of Batman may be at risk, but now that I'm in a peaceful place, I can go back to Batman, meaning whatever problems I'm facing in the world, and say, cool, let's tackle this together, let's figure it out together.
I love it. The same in life. When you have problems at work, you can say, okay, that's the part of me that this the working environment.
Right.
So I can separate myself from my work life or my any other problems, right? Financial problems and etc. Because I have to stay myself.
Yeah.
Separating yourself. That actually an amazing life hack.
It is, and we've seen this happen. We know how this works, because if I have little nieces and nephews and godsons and stuff, and one of them has come to me before, crying their eyes out, screaming, crying, because the head of the doll came off. So they're holding the doll in one hand, the head in the other. Uncle Jason, I don't know what to do. But I look at this and I'm not crying, I'm not upset, because I know how this works. Oh, it's okay. If the head comes off, it just pops back on, and it's fine. But we have to get to that place of realizing, oh, it's okay. People have been through these things before. I'm not the first one.
Yeah.
And if I look back at my history, I know one thing to be true. There's nothing I've been through that I haven't gotten through, because I'm here right now talking to you.
Yeah.
So the evidence shows me no matter what crisis goes on, I'm pretty good at recovering from it. So it'll probably be the same going forward.
Great. And I also read that maybe I will ask this question the wrong way, but you tell me, that you do not believe in positive thinking.
Yes, and you
Tell us
asked the
more
question
about that.
perfectly. Yeah, that was great. So I was at a coffee shop one day. This was in Raleigh, North Carolina. And I'm sitting at a coffee table, at a coffee shop, and it's like this long kind of community table. So I'm sitting here just working away. I was actually writing the book at that time. I'm just sitting there typing away. And there are these two women that are sitting next to me, sitting across from each other. And the one woman says, I just don't know what I'm going to do. And, you know, this new company came over and took over our business, and they've been laying off a lot of people, and I'm just worried that I'm going to get laid off, and I don't know what to do. And her friend says to her, girl, just think positive. You just think positive, girl. Everything's going to be okay. And I'm like, no, that's a terrible thing to say. But so what do I mean? Instead of positive thinking, what I want to shift into is possibility thinking, right? Possibility-based thinking. If I were her friend, I didn't want to interject, it wasn't my business, but if I were her friend, I would have said to her, let's think about some possibilities here. This company's coming in and they're taking over and they have new managers and they're laying people off and everybody's scared. What if you went to your new boss who's just come in and said, hey, listen, I know this is a big undertaking. I know people are scared. I know there's new procedures and things that we need to get people to adopt. How can I help you to make this integration between the two companies better? Now, just by asking that question, when it comes time for the layoffs, do you think that she has a better chance of sticking around or being fired? Sticking around, because she focused on possibilities. What can I create given what I've been put in front of me? So positive thinking, it's lovely. There's nothing wrong with mantras and affirmations and quotes. I love all that stuff too. But when it comes to actually doing something that's of value in the world, you have to focus on possibilities.
Օմորֆիա բարձրակարգ գեղեցկության սրահն իր դռներն է բացել բոլոր նրանց համար, ովքեր հոգատար եւ խնամքով են վերաբերվում իրենց արտաքին տեսքին։ Գեղեցկության ծառայություններ, ֆարսահարդարում, մատնահարդարում, պեդիկյուր, դիմահարդարում, թարթիչների լիցք, լամինացիա եւ այլն։ Խորհրդատվության եւ գրանցվելու համար զանգահարեք 818 649 10 19։
𝐀𝐦𝐚𝐫𝐢𝐚 Boutique ժամանակակից եւ դասական ոճի նմուշներ, ներմուծող եվրոպական տարբեր երկրներից, որոնք կգոհացնեն ցանկացած տարիքի կանանց պահանջները իրենց բարձր որակով, վառ գույներով ամենօրյա եւ երեկոյան զգեստներ։ 𝐀𝐦𝐚𝐫𝐢𝐚 Boutique
LA Smart Blinds, հիշեք այս անունը, շերտավարակույրներ, շուկայի նորագույն լիթիում մարտկոցներով, մեր համակարգերը կառավարվում են Google և Alexa համակարգերով, գույների հսկայական ընտրանի, LA Smart Blinds, շուկայի ամենացածր գները, մեր մասնագետների օգնությամբ ձեր առանձնատները, աշխատավայրը, բնակարանը կստանա բոլորովին նոր տեսք, զանգահարեք 818 281 81 36 LA Smart Blinds.
I agree with you, because sometimes we use that positive thinking not the way it was created.
Right.
Because positive thinking has actually the different definition. It means you have to focus on what is the best for you out there, not the worst scenarios.
Yeah.
So that's the positive thinking. It's not all world crashing around me, but I have to do nothing and just be positive.
Right.
That's not the positive thinking. That's running away from your problem.
Right, exactly. And that's why they've actually upgraded the way to upgrade positive thinking is if you look at positive psychology, right, as an entire discipline, they talk about optimism, right? And optimism is not about like passive hope and just,
No.
oh, I hope everything. Optimism is a system of thinking, and they've done studies for 20 years with over 500,000 people, and they have found that optimism can be learned. Right? It's a learned trait. But one of the shifts here that we have to do to be optimistic is that we have to take the things that happen in our lives. When we're not optimistic, people who are pessimistic, and I have pessimistic moments because I'm a human.
Absolutely.
We all do.
Oh.
What they typically do when something bad happens, they look at that thing as being permanent and pervasive. So in other words, let's say I get fired from my job. I didn't just get fired from my job, it's a permanent thing. I'm never going to find a job again. And it's pervasive, meaning it's going to invade every part of my life. So now I lost a job. Well, if I don't have a job, then I'm going to have to move back in with my parents. And who's going to want to marry somebody that loses their parents? And then I'll have to get a job that I really hate, and it's going to be soul-sucking. And it's like, whoa, hold on, right? This became permanent and pervasive from one thing.
Yeah.
People who are optimistic, they flip that script. And instead of it being permanent and pervasive, it's temporary and it's isolated. It is a snapshot in time, and it does not dictate how your entire life's going to play out.
Yeah, the main thing is the main rule of universe that everything changes.
That's
Nothing can be permanent. And I loved actually the topic that you talked about in the beginning of our conversation about joy and suffering. One of my favorite topics because we focused on suffering more than on a joy because we think that joy is something not serious enough.
Yeah.
That when we have joy, we're not achieving anything. That joy is something. Even some cultures think that joy is something dirty that they should avoid.
Right.
So let's talk about that, about joy and suffering. How can we shift our mentalities from suffering to joy? Because let's be clear, the suffering, we got that idea about suffering from dozens of ancient books that tell us that suffering is okay, suffering is good. But also, let's start talking about the joy. So what's your recipe of joy?
Yeah. Well, a little bit of chocolate. No, okay. So the interesting thing about suffering is that so much of what we call suffering is just resistance to what is, right? Resistance to reality, right?
I love it.
And so if you say no to something, then it's going to feel heavier. If you say yes to something, you welcome it in. So for example, you may think that if you, your fiance or your boyfriend proposes to you and now you're going to be his fiance, that made you happy. Everybody would say, yeah, it was the happiest day of my life. But what happened is you said yes to that coming in. There are plenty of people who say no to proposals and it's the worst day of their life, right? So it's the saying yes. It's saying yes to the world and not being in resistance. But that's hard to do sometimes, right? Because we feel like when things come into our world that feel like a threat, then we have to do something about that, right? Oh my God, it's my life. I don't want my life to be bad. I don't want my life to not work out. And so we start to protect. We want to open this up and expand this. And the way one of my teachers talks about it that I really love, he talks about, think about the room. Even think about the room we're in right now, right? Does this table care at all who's sitting here right now? Doesn't care at all. It's fine. We could be here. We could leave. It says, okay, you're fine. You can stay here. The room doesn't care at all. The room doesn't care if the table's ugly, if it's nice. It doesn't care about anything. It just witnesses. It's just a space for all of it. So the more we can be in this place of witnessing, right, letting all the content come into our world, letting all the thoughts, letting all the stressful emotions come in, and we don't judge those. We just stay aware of them. We just witness them. We just observe them instead of identifying with them. Then the suffering immediately is going to lower and the joy is going to come up. But the thing with joy we need to be really careful of is that some people think joy is exuberant joy. Oh my gosh, I'm so joyful. And that's not always the case. Sometimes I have joy that's just peaceful and contented. Sometimes it's the joy of learning something new. Sometimes it's the joy of recognizing that the pain that I'm feeling is because I loved something so much that I can also feel pain at the same time. So joy doesn't have to be this big thing that we all shoot for. Joy can just be this contented, centered, grounded feeling.
Absolutely. And also let me add something. Sometimes we think that joy only can come from some big events, like we got promotion, we got a house, we got a car, like material things. But recently, my fiance and I have had a conversation, and I came from workout, and I'm like, I got a new friend. I got a new friend. She's Korean. That's so cool. I will learn more about Korea. And I love having friends from all over the world because I'm so excited that I will learn about new culture. And he looks at me like, you're crazy. People, I thought you'll come and say, like, I got, I don't know, $1 million. I got something like that. You think like America. That's what I said to him. And I remembered that feeling, and I love the feeling being happy for those little things, you know. I met a new friend that will teach me something. I had the best drink in my life today.
Yeah.
That's an amazing event as well.
It's huge. It's so huge. And so I actually, my TEDx talk was kind of all about this kind of thing. And it's about living in the I don't know mindset, right? The problem, the reason we stop being grateful and the reason we stop being joyful when little things happen is because we've experienced them before, right? So the first time I have this amazing burger, it's like, oh my gosh, this is the most amazing thing ever. And then I go back 4 or 5 more times and I'm like, oh, I know the burger. I've had the burger before. I know already. So being in the I know mind instead of the I don't know mind is what robs us of our joy. So one of the things we can do that's so fun and so powerful, and it just came to me one day. I was in Starbucks, I was getting coffee. This is like, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago. And for some reason, when they handed me the cup, I took a look at it, and for whatever reason, I started thinking about all the people that had to exist in order for this cup to be in my hand. Right?
Oh, wow.
Like all the raw materials for the cup that had to be brought together, the machinery
it.
that had to be created to process it, the people that drive it across the world, across the country in a truck, the people who actually pour the coffee into the cup and hand it to me, and all of their life circumstances and everything that had to line up for them to be doing those things. And all of a sudden, this cup of coffee is the most miraculous thing I've ever seen in my life.
Crazy. That's amazing. Wow. I love that concept. Actually, we should think about those little things more in life, because our life consists from those little things.
That's it.
Right?
That's exactly it. There's actually a guy, I can't remember his name. I can't remember his name. There's a guy that wrote a book where he did something. I don't think it was coffee, but he had some item that he really loved. And he wrote an entire book of tracing back everybody that touched that item all the way back to its inception so he could thank them along the way. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. I love that.
Wow. Such a great book. When you'll remember the name, we need
I'll
it.
let you know. Yeah, for sure.
Please. And my traditional questions of the show. What is life balance for you?
You know, I think life balance for me is living a life where no matter what I'm doing, as many of my values as possible are being used, are being exercised, right? So I may have periods where I'm just working super intensely, but as long as one of my main values, which is entertaining or informing or educating or growth or connection, like all these things that are my values, as long as I'm getting those needs met, then I feel in balance, right? In balance, not imbalanced, but I feel like I have balance when I have that. So for me, it's not so much a matter of like how much rest versus how much work, how much leisure versus how much, grinding. It's more just, are my values being exercised in the world?
Wow. My next question supposed to be about values.
Perfect.
You brutally stole. You brutally stole my question.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I'm never going to be invited back. That was it.
No, that's amazing. That's amazing because that's why that's the traditional questions of my show, because I think the most important things is balance in life, defining your balance, because for each of us, balance means different things, you know? Yeah. And sometimes people think that balance is something we have to reach and stay there.
Yeah.
No, it's like self-development. You have to evolve.
Right.
So before I'll ask another traditional question, how do you cope with self-development processes? How long do you stay in realization? I know, because we have to digest some information, right? And then move forward, or we have to go back a bit. So tell us about your processes in that field.
So I'm a weirdo when it comes to this. I'm a weirdo. I'm not.
Love it. Already love it.
Yeah, there are people who are like, I read 50 books this year, and I'm like, I haven't gotten through one. But here's why. When I read a book, or anything, it could be a video I watch on YouTube, but when I'm consuming, when I'm consciously consuming, if I come across an idea or a concept that really lands for me, I stick with it.
Wow, but
and
that's
I go
amazing.
Deep on it. Yeah, so I'll go back every day and just read the same 2 or 3 pages.
Love it.
Because I want it to be ingrained. We have such a culture, and I definitely did this for probably the first 5 years that I was on the personal growth track, is it was like insights. Oh, like I'm a junkie. Oh, I need another one. Oh, more insights. Yeah. But then there was no chance for it to really integrate.
No.
So for a lot of my clients, I put them on what I call an information diet, right? So a 30-day information diet. And in the 30-day information diet, they can pick one book. It doesn't have to be mine. It'd be nice if it is, but it's fine. I don't have that big of an ego. So they have to pick one book and one book only, and that's all they can read for the month. But there's a bigger piece to this. anytime they want to fold over a page or highlight something in the book, that's fine. Highlight, fold the page, and then put the book down and go take action on the thing you just highlighted.
Oh, wow.
Right?
That's amazing.
So it's integrated in real time. And so it means you get through the book much slower, much slower. It may take you 6 months to read one book, but you've actually integrated what you've learned instead of having it just be knowledge.
Yeah, you let it to digest, because that's the main problem nowadays. We have so much information, we're consuming again and again. And what we hear from media, that we have to learn more. Millionaires read that much books. These guys read this much books. And how many books did you read?
Right. and now it's personal growth shame. People
Yes,
are shaming
exactly.
each other. Yeah, no.
Oh, you are not evolving enough.
No.
This guy is doing much better. No, that's what I like, actually. I agree with that. That's one of my concepts as well, because I think we need a time to digest.
Yeah.
It's like our body. You need time to digest the food.
Yeah.
You cannot eat pizza this big, and then expect that it will digest it in 2 hours.
Yeah, you
No,
get sick.
you will get exactly,
Yeah.
and you are getting sick with information again and again
Yep.
through your TVs, through your Instagram, through your friends, books. Varieties are endless.
Yep.
And I think we need a time to digest. We have to eat that pizza piece by piece.
Yeah,
That's the
it's so
best
true.
part.
Absolutely.
So I love your method.
Yeah. Now
Love
I
it.
have to ask you a question. I want to know about the life balance for you. What does it mean for you?
Oh, life balance for me, it's a process. It's a process in life, because I believe that we have different points in our life where we have to evolve, but by evolving, we have to feel good. Because the concept of suffering disappeared for me after my first Vipassana, because when I understood that, oh, wait, I do not need to suffer. I actually can enjoy this life and also do as much as I did, but enjoying that, because I also, our stories are very similar. I also had a great career. At 28, I was the general producer of the biggest event in Eastern Europe.
Wow.
So I had that career when I just did non-stop. I didn't have any life. I was working non-stop. And by 28, I had the career that people don't have at 70 years, when they're 70 years old. So I stopped. And by the way, Vipassana and the concept of suffering, that is actually wrong. Yeah, we don't need to suffer. We don't need to think about our sins, what we do wrong. We can actually focus on our strengths. So life balance for me is when you constantly work with your subconscious mind and when you shifting your concepts.
I love that.
Life concepts, because there was an amazing psychologist, my favorite one, because my second degree, because of that I went and got another degree, psychology
wow.
degree.
No way,
yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah, and my favorite psychologist is Carl Gustav Jung. And by the way, one of your concepts, it's his concept.
Oh, really? Which
Yeah,
one?
they're very similar. That when you get any information or any fact, you have to sit down and think about different associations with that. For example, snake for you can be some disgusting thing, but snake for the health workers, it can be the health. You know, everyone have the different associations with the same thing.
Right.
The events in our life.
Yeah.
One thing can mean so much. So just sit down and decide what this event can be good, why this event can be good for you, because sometimes when we, for example, lose our work, lose our job, we think, that's it, that's the worst thing in my life. That's happened with my brother. He just got first kid and got fired from his job. And he thought that it's the worst thing in his life. But then we sat with him and I'm like, okay, let's think what good things will come to your life because of these events. And now he has an amazing job, online job. He can travel, he can live whatever he wants to. He got the second son, and he's happy. He's happy what he's doing.
That's
But
amazing.
That's the balance for me, being able to be flexible in life.
Yeah. That's so that is huge, because like the psychological rigidity, like being too rigid, too tight, it doesn't work. And it's like if you were a surgeon and all day you kept your fists clenched like this, and then at the end of the day you had to go do some delicate surgery, you wouldn't be able to.
No.
Your hands would be shaking, right? Because you put too much pressure. So if we put pressure on our muscles, they grow. We put pressure on our mind too much, it shrinks. And so exactly what you said, having that flexibility psychologically, it's everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that question.
Yeah,
No
I
one
love
asked
it.
me that question. And the last question of our show, but I can speak with you like 4 hours,
Same.
honestly.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the last question, what's the mission of your life?
Yeah, it's what's so funny because we opened with this, right? So it's literally my one-line life plan and one-line business plan is to leave everybody I meet with at least 5% more joy than I found them. And the funny thing about that, though, is again, it's really the flip side. I just want to see people with 5% less suffering because I know how bad it feels to suffer. I suffered so much earlier in my life, and I still have moments of suffering, and I know what that feels like. And so if there's something I can do to contribute to people's joy and to contribute to reducing their suffering, what better mission could there be for me than that?
I love it, and I love that you know your mission. That's the best thing. I think and that's not the easiest thing to figure out your mission. No,
Right.
you need time for that. Jason, thank you very much for this
My pleasure.
interview.
Thank you so much for having me.
I had so much joy. So
Amazing! Did we get at least 5%?
I think it's even more.
Oh my, perfect! That's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching us, and see you in a week.
Yeah.